Welcome to the Dynasty Pulse right here. Exclusive premiere on Fantasy Sports Advice Network. We'll be dropping Dynasty Pulse after dark. Later on, over on the Undroppables and Fantasy Football Plus Network. I am here. I am bigz. We've got Chev Sanders to my left. We've got Coach Retzlaff up in the box. We got Grindberg. We got Schultzy. And we have a fantastic show tonight. We have a very, very special guest. We're talking combine football. We are right at the precipice, right at the beginning of draft season. We've had the Senior Bowl. We've had the East-West Shrine Bowl. We've had mock drafts starting for rookie league, rookie mock drafts, whatever you want to call it. My brain is anyway. And tonight we're going to be talking about combine because it's the next step in draft season. We got these guys. They're out there in their spandex, and they're going to be running and working out so that we can all look and go, ha ha, that dude cooked, and ha ha, that guy sucks. Granted, we're talking about the 1% of elite athletes on the planet, but we're still going to judge them, and that's what this weekend is all about. So I want to introduce our special guest. I'm going to spoil it real quick here with. We have a member of the Football Guys.
Okay. All right.
Sharp as a knife, Dave Kluge from the Football Guys. Everybody, welcome Dave. Welcome, Dave.
What's up, fellas? Thanks for having me. Always a good time getting to chop it up in the off season. And like you said, this is one of the best times of the year, the combine. I'm going to steal a quote directly from some of the guys on the Audible, Sigmund Bloom and Cecil Lammey. And they say that this is the last little bit of truth that we get before the draft, where we get some cold, hard numbers we can put on these prospects. And from here on out, it is just lies. You can't listen to anything you see. Every single report that comes out is going to have some ulterior motive. It's all smoke screens and mirrors from here on out. So this is a fun week right here, and then you got to fade the noise until the draft comes around.
That's signal versus noise is the most important edge in fantasy football.
I love it. It is. Dave, everybody knows you from the Football Guys, but tell everybody where they can find all your stuff, what you're up to right now. Obviously, it's the off season, and you guys must be pretty busy doing some stuff over there at the Football Guys.
We are, yeah. We're staying busy. Right now, I've got two shows that I'm hosting. The Football Guys Fantasy Football Show with Alfredo Brown, which Grindberg, you are familiar with. You took it down the Listener League 2 years ago and won it, so congratulations. You've got a ticket for life in that league. On top of that, I'm filling in as the temporary host on the Football Guys Dynasty Show with Jeff Bell. So staying real busy right now between those two shows, coming out with about 5 episodes a week. On top of that, got a bunch of writing. We're going to do some combine reaction articles. They're going to be out as soon as these drills are done this week. So footballguys.com, you can see everything that we got going on over there.
Perfect,
Great merch, too.
Yeah.
I do endorse.
We all endorse, and we are going to get down with the combine here, folks, and we're going to talk about some. Yeah, we're going to probe our guest Dave here. Nothing like a good old probing here, and we all got a couple questions for you, Dave, lined up because we know that
we were just supposed to have one.
Oh no, we all got
and we
one.
all yelling at him at the same time.
It needs to be thought perfect.
I like
answer them all at the same time too. Let's do it.
On three. 1, 2, 3.
No. All right. Well, the combine is kicking off today, actually. And, there's a lot of offensive skill players going to be testing on Saturday. So each of us are going to talk to Dave about a question. Schultzy, why don't you start us off here, bud?
Dave, longtime listener, first-time caller here. Any player participating in the combine we got that, honestly, you have your flag planted on already, and despite whatever they do, you're already sold or not sold, I guess. Like, a guy like Bucky Irving who tested poorly, but the tape was there, right? Or maybe the other way around, that you're like, hey, this guy, he ain't it, but he's going to go out there and blow everyone away at the combine. Do you got a guy like that yet?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, you talk about Bucky Irving, a guy that, a lot of people liked, had a bad combine, and then a lot of people reacted to it. You could look back, 2 years ago, a guy like Isaiah Spiller that everybody really liked, had a terrible combine and then never panned out in the NFL. So it can kind of go both ways. You want to pay attention to it, but you don't want to put too much weight into it. A guy that I have really fallen in love with during this process over the last couple of months here is Trey Harris. And I don't think that he's the most athletic guy. I think a lot of people are going to see that Ole Miss helmet and just assume that he's another DK Metcalf, AJ Brown type of player, but he's just such a different type of receiver. It's nuanced footwork and body control and ball skills that are really his best traits. So I'm going to be watching the gauntlet closely because I think that's a drill that he can really do well in. But when it comes to the 40 time and things of that nature, I don't expect him to test well. And I think that if he doesn't test well, people are going to say, oh, we've got concerns about his athleticism. I've already got those same concerns about his athleticism, but that's not how he wins. You look at what he did analytically. Over 5 yards per route run last year in college is just a ludicrous number to be able to hit. So I think a lot of people might react negatively if he comes out with a less than stellar workout numbers, but I'm not really too concerned about it. I think he is a very good polished receiver. Even if he doesn't test well, I'm still going to be in on Trey Harris.
That is a great answer because you have landed in a Trey Harris truther beehive right here.
Let's go.
Have to change my
All
kid's
of us.
name to Dave.
Safe space.
All of us are bricked up in the cement aisle for some Trey Harris.
Love it.
And got a chance to talk to Jackson Dart at the Senior Bowl, and he's all in on Trey Harris too. So that's all I needed to hear. No, and you're right about the analytics. There are some times where the analytics pop so hard, like with Malik Neighbors last year.
Mhm.
Didn't matter what Malik Neighbors did. We knew just based on the charts that dude was going to be absolutely for real, and Trey Harris is one of those guys. So we have 5 in agreement here, I think.
Yeah, we're all big Trey Harris guys for big Trey Harris now. Dave, I got a question for you. And I listened to your show last week where you guys were going over the wide receiver class. And you guys over at the Footballguys have Luther Burden as your wide receiver 2 in this class. On the show this week, you compared him to guys like Malik Neighbors and Jamar Chase, saying he has the same upside and ceiling. For me, I'm struggling based off his college numbers, especially last year, 2024. We saw his numbers drop to just 676 yards, 3 touchdowns. We can't dismiss that breakout year in 2023, but it still doesn't hold up against the production of, say, a Jamar Chase or a Malik Neighbors. What also is concerning about me is his success in manufactured touches and design plays, which is kind of going under the radar when you look at his 2023 season. So with the combine coming up, given his inconsistencies, especially compared to the production of those other 2 top tier players, what will you be looking for at the combine to confirm your outlook on his potential? Will it be the agility drills, the 40 time, or is it even going to matter to you at the combine here, Dave?
Well, the reason I'm a little bit higher on Luther Burden is because of the upside. And I don't know if I comped him to Malik Neighbors or Jamar Chase. I said that, if everything pans out and he reaches his ceiling outcome, that's the type of player he could be. He could be a top 3 receiver in the league. He's got that athleticism that could get him there. But you talked about the problems. He did struggle a little bit in man coverage. You talked about the manufactured touches. One of our coworkers over at Footballguys, Zare, actually has gone through and charted all of Burden's touches from last year. 43.6% of his touches were manufactured, whether it be jet sweeps, wheel routes, slants. I mean, they were working hard to get the ball in his hand, and that is definitely concerning. So as far as what he does this week at the combine, I expect him to go out there and smash. You see the athleticism. There's no reason he shouldn't. Now, if he comes out and tests terribly, there's probably going to be something behind the scenes there. I don't know if he's sick or whatever it is, but we've seen enough tape on Luther Burden that we know the type of athlete he is, that I'm not going to put too much weight into his combine performance. But if he has a terrible week and Emeka Egbuka and Matthew Golden and Trey Harris light it up, I might have to make that change in my rankings. But right now, based on what I've seen from what he did last year, it's tough for me to move him anywhere besides wide receiver 2.
A question on that. Do you have any concern about Luther Burden getting so many of his touches concentrated within the first 10 yards of a play, being able to open it up more intermediate and deep in the NFL? Can you speak to your confidence level in Luther Burden at the next level?
Yeah, you hope he can develop those skills, of course, and we have seen some players who have done that. Flashback to DJ Moore and Jalen Waddle, guys who early on in their careers were very near the line of scrimmage on the majority of their plays, and then as they developed in the NFL, they unlocked that deep ball. Amon St. Brown is another guy who a lot of his work was coming near the line of scrimmage, and then in year 3, he kind of unlocked that deep ball ability. So that's the hope with Luther Burden, and when I talk about him, I'm always talking about the high-end range of outcomes and what he could be. He's not there yet, but if he develops those skills, he's still a young guy. He can still get better over his time in the NFL. I think that's the ceiling is what allures me so much.
So follow up on that. Lance Zierlein has talked about it being a weakness that Burden gets so much close to the line of scrimmage. Do you find that could actually be a strength?
It's a good way to put it. I don't know if I'd make it a strength, but targets are more likely to come to a player who's near the line of scrimmage than one who's running 40 yards downfield. So we know he's got the yards after the catch ability. If they're using him in a similar role than we saw last year in college, where he is playing near the line of scrimmage, getting manufactured touches and allowing him to make plays after the catch, that's going to be nice for fantasy football. We don't know about the longevity. Like, is that something that he can do over an 8-year career? Maybe not, but at least in the short term, getting those manufactured short touches might actually not be the worst thing for fantasy football.
Yeah, everybody wants an Amon-Ra St. Brown, not an Alec Pierce. Mr. Kluge, I have a follow-up. So I'm sure everybody here saw Scott Barrett's tweet today in regards to Luther Burden, and he tweeted about every 800-yard FBS wide receiver season ranked by percentage of yards gained on screens and deep slot targets since 2018 players drafted in the first 3 rounds. Number 1 was Malachi Corley. Number 2 was Malachi Corley. Number 3 was Tutu Atwell. Number 4 was Luther Burden. Then Wan'Dale Robinson, Treylon Burks, Devin Duvernay, Jalen Hyatt, and Amari Rogers. You have
not
to
a list
go.
You want to be on. I did not see that tweet, but I'm hearing that live on this show. Yikes!
Yeah, you have to go a ways to get to Neighbors. He was at 40%. Luther Burden was at 51%, and Amari Rogers was at 46%. So you're in the teens when you get to Malik Neighbors. So this really concerned me because I had designs on Luther Burden being up there in my rankings, and I got some pushback from that by Chev, and I wanted to have a chance to flag plant, and I saw that and I was like, oh gosh, that's not the names that you want to be associated with. Although I have to say, Treylon Burks, I'm a Treylon Burks.
There it is.
So
I was a Treylon Burks truther.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a safe space, Biggs. We were all Treylon. I was a Treylon Burks. I lived 20 miles from where he played college football at. So
I don't think
we were all Treylon Burks. This is a safe space, bud.
I know that
we all said
words,
were. Biggs is talking in the present.
Thank
tense.
you.
He said
yes,
he is
saying
a Treylon Burks truther.
This 2020.
I wish I knew how to quit you.
2025 Treylon Burks breakout. I'm here for it. So there are ways to evaluate players. We have film study, and we have the eye test, where you're not digging into film, but you're like watching a guy move on the field, things like that. We've got the combine stats, and then we have analytics. And do those analytics, hearing that for the first time, that sounds like it concerns you, and you might want to be digging a little bit deeper?
Absolutely it does. And I wonder how much of that is just the fact that Brady Cook was really bad at throwing the ball downfield. They wanted to get the ball into Luther Burden's hands. They almost had to do it on slants because he couldn't be trusted to throw much else. So that could have something to do with it. But again, I try not to dig too deep into players. I mean, these are my rankings right now where I've got Luther Burden as my wide receiver 2. Might adjust a little bit after the combine, but I think one of the weird things that I've seen is where Luther Burden is getting landing in mock drafts. I mean, we've seen him in the top 10 in some mock drafts, and we've seen others that have him going mid-round 2. If that happens on draft day where he falls all the way to round 2, then it's going to be a situation like last year where Adonai Mitchell was a guy that I really, really liked, but after 32 teams willingly passed on Adonai Mitchell, I had no choice but to adjust and move him down my rankings. And if that same thing happens to Luther Burden, I'll be moving him down as well.
Good. That's
and funny enough, Daniel Jeremiah, Bucky Brooks, don't have Luther Burden in their initial mocks. I know Daniel Jeremiah's had 2, Bucky Brooks has 1. There's a plethora of analysts on there, but notably Bucky and Daniel Jeremiah don't have Burden in round 1.
I mean,
Chev 11.
listen,
Let's get your take on this.
Well, I just wanted to note that Chev,
what are you doing?
Chev made it a point to make sure that he had the proper show sheet, and he was supposed to ask his question already.
Yeah, so I've just been sitting here just marveling at the show sheet, and I was like, did I pull the wrong show sheet up again? So I was like, I felt like Shaq in the time that Charles Barkley just like kept talking and never let him talk. I was like, man, maybe I just get to be on the screen with Dave and never talk to him. Maybe that's the bit for today.
We got you.
I'm comfortable for the bit, but the joke is the bit. So Dave, listen, okay, long time follower, big fan, glad you're here. Now that we got that out of the way, I want to know, okay, who's a guy, I know you said Trey Harris already. Who's a guy that you got into the film, you've done a little bit. I mean, I know you said you hadn't done a ton of research on everyone yet, but who's a guy that you liked more than you expected? And which player are you flag planted on that you think that you're looking to confirm your bias one way or the other based on their performance at the combine?
I think the guy that I started watching early on and wasn't crazy about, and the more I watched, the more I started to like him, was Jack Besh. When I first saw him, I just saw a guy that wasn't really doing all that much, and then as I started to watch him, the more I liked. He's just a technician as a route runner. He seems like he always just gets open 2 steps off of the line. He's got a really nice release package. But really what it comes down to for me is that there's just no wasted movement when you watch him play. Every single step he's taking is either to gain leverage on a defender or to get downfield. When he's catching the ball, he's never breaking his stride. He just seamlessly catches the ball and then continues moving upfield to make plays after the catch. He eats up space so quickly, and the more I watch him, the more I like him. And I've kind of made this joke a few times on the show with Alfredo Brown, my co-host. He comped him Puka Nacua, and I hate him for making that comp because now when I watch Jack Besh play, that's all I see is Puka Nacua. I mean, they move so similarly. They're very similar sizes. So I saw, the 1,000+ yards, and I saw that it was a TCU team with very little target competition, didn't really put too much weight into it. But the more I look into it, this guy's 6'2", 215 pounds. He's got some good athleticism. He's a really polished receiver. I think he has the potential to be the primary targeter on a team in the NFL.
Hey, so
I love that. So, the Puka Nacua comp is really interesting, but he's just really powerful and he moves. He doesn't waste a lot of motion, and he's a contested catch guy, and he's extremely developed as a route runner. So yeah, I love that comp. Now, with that being said, who is there a guy that you kind of planted a flag on one way or the other that you're just looking to take the numbers from the combine and say, hey, look, I told you so, call it a day?
All right, I like that question. Taj Brooks is a guy that, a lot of people are pegging him to be undrafted. But when I watch him, a guy with his size and speed, I mean, he's a short guy, but he's stout. And I think he's going to go out there and surprise a lot of people with his athleticism. So that's a guy that I'm hoping really shows out this week so I could say I told you so.
Yeah. Yes. I love you so much, Dave.
Are you a Taj Brooks guy too?
Yes.
All right, love it.
Yeah, just 5'10", 230 with that kind of wiggle. Yes, sign me up.
Yeah.
Now, Dave, is Taj Brooks somebody in rookie drafts, as we're thinking about round 4, round 5, you got to come away with him every time? Is he a truther to that point for you?
Yeah, I mean, I've been drafting quite a bit of him. The nice thing is you can typically get him in round 5. And I feel like I always really fall for these guys. Like, you alluded to it, Chev, the short, thick guys with the wiggle, or Ramadre Stevenson, something like that. The NFL doesn't seem to like him as much as I do. And we typically see these guys fall to day 3. But I think he's one of those guys that is probably going to, whether it be day 3 or an undrafted free agent, he's going to end up on a team. And I think he's one of those guys that when given the opportunity, he's already got the poise and the experience from his long college career. I think he can step on the field immediately and make a difference as a 3-down back.
Can we can the Taj Brooks talk until I get to my part of the next segment, please?
I'm glad you guys are letting me talk about Taj Brooks, because anytime I bring him up on my show, my co-host tells me to shut up and that we're done with the Taj Brooks talk.
Well, how about what are some teams that you would love for him to land on to particularly match his skill set and backfield mates?
That's a good question, and I haven't even thought about it that deeply. I mean, obviously, I think the one that everybody wants to see is the Chargers, a team that really needs a running back right now and has the really good offensive line. I mean, that would be a dream come true. I think that they're probably going to be in the running for Najee Harris or maybe one of the earlier running backs. But really, I mean, when it comes to down to running backs, anywhere where you can get an opportunity. So if he's got a veteran in front of him with an injury history, that's good enough for me, because we know that it's probably going to be week 6, week 8, week 10. At some point, that opportunity will arise.
Okay, if you like Taj Brooks, go ahead and like, subscribe, hit the bell, and put a comment down below. If you don't like Taj Brooks, go ahead and like and subscribe, comment,
there it
hit
is.
the bell, and comment down below. Let's go back to Jack Bech for a second, because this is a guy that I saw at the Senior Bowl, up close, personal, got to interview him, watched him make some incredible catches. He is strong, and that was one of the things that stood out is his physicality at the catch point is very enticing. You don't get recruited by LSU, especially at his size at the tight end position, with designs on maybe playing tight end at 6'1". What? Without having a pretty good skill set out of high school. Where in your rankings does Jack Bech sit? Is he in your top 10? Are you looking at him as a sleeper? Is he an absolute target? Is that all landing spot dependent?
Sorry, I'm pulling up my rankings right now. I probably should have been a little bit more prepared for this question. He is my wide receiver 11 right now. So I've got a few guys ahead of him. Alec Aomanar. I always get that one. Is it Aomanar? I think that's how I was saying it.
We can just refer to
Aomanar.
All right. Alec. Yeah, I've got Restrepo, Jaden Higgins, and some other guys ahead of him, but he's my wide receiver 11. So right at the fringe of top 10.
Okay. So he's in the proper tier is what you're saying.
Yeah, I've got him ahead of Isaiah Bond, ahead of Jalen Noel, Torrey Holton. Yeah, so he's a guy that I'm typically walking away from rookie drafts with, because I've got him higher than the consensus does.
Got it. Okay.
All right, Schultzy. Or it's you, Coach. Coach, you're up, man.
No, Schultzy has a comment.
It's funny enough, Isaiah Bond there and Jack Bech on the grades I have pulled up for the combine. You mentioned, Dave, you've got Jack Bech above Isaiah Bond, who we're predicting that Bond will have some sort of a rise. Biggs has been big on Isaiah Bond heading into the combine. They both actually have a scouting grade of 6.33 on the nose, so it's not really sacrilege to what you're saying. Dave, any issue with the TCU receiver narrative, Quentin Johnson, Jalen Reagor, any fear on that, or is that too much fear from a helmet scouting perspective?
I think Savion Williams kind of fits the Quentin Johnston mold a little bit more than Jack Bech does. He's such a different type of receiver. I feel like a lot of the guys that we've seen come out of TCU are just these workout warriors, these athletes that are, really sparked up, and that's what we get excited about. Where Jack Bech, he's got some of the strength and he's got some athleticism in there, but he's just a different type of receiver, a little bit more refined in how he plays. That being said, some of the concerns that I had about Quentin Johnson, I do have about Savion Williams, but I think the consensus is kind of picked up to that, and that's why we're looking at him as more of a day 3 pick now.
Perfect. So if you've been burned in the past, don't let that happen to you with Jack Bech. A question for you, Dave. We often look out for bullish test scores to help us inform of risers at the combine. Are there any players in which you have concern that you sort of like, and you think if they test poorly, it'll send their stock down after the combine?
Taj Brooks. No. I mean, Taj Brooks realistically is one of those guys that I think if he comes out and has a terrible day, he ends up undrafted. But two other guys that kind of fit that mold, these early down bruisers that we have some questions about their long speed, Cam Scadaboo and Damian Martinez. I don't know how you guys feel about him. Either of those guys, they're really fun to watch, and they, undoubtedly racked up a lot of production in college. But I fear that these are guys that, the athleticism that we saw when they're playing against college guys might not translate to an NFL field. And now when they have to actually run these drills against their peers, they might end up slipping out a little bit. So Scadaboo, really good story. Everybody loved watching that bowl game. He was a really good player this year. Damian Martinez, I think he's a really fun player to watch too, the way he can just truck through guys. But if they come out and run 4.7s, that's really going to hurt their draft stock, and it hurts their likelihood of them falling into a valuable role in the NFL. Something I talk about all the time is we love throwing the idea around of a goal line back, but those guys really don't exist. And for a guy who would get pigeonholed into that type of role to actually be relevant in fantasy is so slim. So if Scadabo comes out and runs a 4.7 and then we kind of deem him a goal line back, he needs to get drafted to a team that has a running back that isn't good at the goal line, that doesn't have a rushing quarterback, and is going to have a lot of opportunities to score. And the likelihood of that happening is just so thin that I typically try to avoid those guys. So Martinez, Scadaboo, fun players to watch, but if they have bad weeks, I'm not going to be able to ignore it.
I think Scadaboo is kind of insulated by his 600 yards receiving in 2024. Although there is there's a narrative comp, not necessarily physically or performance wise, but there's a narrative comp to Cam Scadaboo. And that is another FBS receiver that came out of my area FCS running back that came out of my area, and that's Joshua Kelly, who started at UC Davis and then transferred to UCLA. Cam Scadaboo started at Sacramento State, which is just across the causeway for me, and then transferred to in the Pac-12 to Arizona State. And so if we want Joshua Kelly as a ceiling for Cam Scadaboo, that's not great. But 600.
I like Scadaboo a lot. Right now, you did mention the rushing or the receiving, and I talk about that.
Yards receiving.
And I think he does have that out, but if he's out here running a 4.7, do they want him as a receiver? Because he's not going to have that, ability in space that they want. So right now I've got him as my RB5, which I think is a lot higher than most people have him. So I think me talking about Scadaboo potentially having a bad week is just setting myself up for potential disappointment, which happens often with the guys that I fall in love with in February.
Yeah. Now, Mike mentioned that everybody would have a pair of questions for you, and I only prepared one. I think that's where we're going. But
one only.
But I just thought of another one. I wanted to ask.
But make him think. Make sure he thinks.
Sometimes there is a disconnect between the Twitterverse or the YouTube fantasy space and what NFL teams actually do in the draft. Do you think that might have something to do with the fact that we are looking at like combine metrics and things like that, when the NFL has AWS out there? They've got a whole lot of, because like if you have a running back who's hitting 21 and a half miles an hour in the open field, what really does his 40 time matter to an NFL team? You know what I mean? So they have some advanced metrics. Do you think that might kind of help feed the disconnect between those of us who are trying to make, these claims and the actual NFL teams that are picking these players?
Yeah, absolutely. And we had an internal discussion about this today among our football guys staffers, because there's a lot of high profile names that aren't working out this year. And the reality is that for us, we love the workouts because they show them on TV and it's fun and it's exciting and we get to put numbers to names. But the reality is it's probably the third most important thing as far as NFL teams, what they care about this week. They care about the medical exams and they care about the interviews, which we don't get to see up close and personal. But the reality is the combine isn't that important. You talked about it, all of the Zebra technology and AWS and all this other stuff that they have access to. And that's why, I mean, one of the hardest things to do is to abandon your priors when the NFL draft comes around, because the reality is the NFL teams that are drafting these players have so much more information. One of the biggest mistakes I made years ago when I first started getting into draft analysis and dynasty rookie rankings and that was really holding down and saying, well, the NFL teams got this wrong. I like Isaiah Spiller and I don't care what anybody else has to say about it. When the reality is that they kind of know what they're doing. And if you're looking for one metric that's going to correlate closest to career long fantasy production, it's going to be draft capital.
I love how you say they know what they're doing, and still Treylon Burks went in the first round, and the Raiders drafted Fabian Washington over Aaron Rodgers.
And Jalen
all right.
Reagor went ahead of Justin Jefferson. There's always bad calls. I'm not saying they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing better than we do.
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue for my question. My question was, what is your take on the healthy players who don't work out at the combine? Does it affect your rankings at all, or do you just chalk it up to them having a good idea of where they're going to be going in the draft?
Yeah,
Their agents have good intel, that kind of thing.
Yeah, Shedeur Sanders knows he's a top 3 guy. Cam Ward knows he's a top 3 guy. Ashton Jeanty knows that he's a top 12 guy. I don't really care about it too much. I mean, it sucks for us, like I said, it helps viewership, and we like to see this. It gives us something to kind of snack on during a lull in the off season, but it really doesn't affect my rankings whatsoever.
So what you're saying is the combine is a conspiracy by the NFL Network to get at. What you're saying is that
what I'm saying.
Shedeur Sanders is afraid to compete.
Oh, don't even go there.
All right.
First of all, you will not besmirch the first of my name in Chev Door.
I didn't say Chevdor. I said Shedeur.
All right.
Now,
Hey, you'll know the NFL's really up for the whole thing's a sham when we get live footage of the Rappaport fights.
Oh gosh.
There you go.
Need that.
I'm ready for that.
Over on Blue Sky, I got crapped on hard by like one of the Green Bay guys, one of the Packers. I don't know if he's a beat writer or what, but the Mike Florio article was really hard for me to read because it was very badly written. And I made note of that on Blue Sky. And then this dude came in there and was like, get a sense of humor. And I was like, okay. So I looked at who he was. He has 10,000 followers on Blue Sky. I was like, oh my God, I just got crapped on some dude with clout. This is not good.
That's awesome. All right. Well, let's talk about clout guys and guys that we're going to be looking at as potential sleepers in this combine and this rookie class. There you go. A little sleep action.
I was snoring.
There you go.
oh,
And he's done his football guys drink, so he's going to have to pour another one. Now, Dave, who is your sleeper headed into this combine?
Let me try to think about somebody that I haven't talked about already. We've already talked about Taj Brooks. We talked about Jack Besh. How about RJ Harvey? I think that's a deep guy that seems to be being forgotten by a lot of people. I see everybody nodding on this show. I see some eyes wide. So I think I'm talking about another guy that y'all might like here. What was that?
that's just my general demeanor whenever somebody mentions RJ Harvey.
We got one masonry expert who's turning a little bit into some cement right now. So
yeah. I'm headed to the cement aisle right now.
I think he was the first guy that just like popped off the screen when I was watching him. Some guys have that quality where I could the joke I like to make is like I could show my mom a UCF football guy and she'd be like, who was that guy right there? Like you don't have to be like a film analysis or anything like that. Like you could just watch a game and know how good he is. Now, I'm expecting his 40 time to be in the low 4.4s, but that's not what I'm most excited about. I think that he's going to come out here and just smash the shuttle cone or the 3-cone and the shuttle drill. I think that's what he does best is in his lateral movements and his agility, his acceleration and his deceleration. And, we have seen, he's a smaller guy, 5'8", just around 200 pounds. I think years ago that would have pushed him deep into day 3, but now we're seeing these guys that are a little bit smaller translating to the NFL and doing it quickly. And he's got that just kind of human joystick ability with how he moves. So he's a guy that for whatever reason, I'm not hearing like any buzz on RJ Harvey, but I think he is going to smash 2 really important drills for running backs. Like I said, the 3-cone and the 20-yard shuttle. And then I think people are going to be talking about him after this weekend.
Tell us you don't watch this show without telling us you don't watch this show.
I'm sorry. I don't watch any shows, if that makes me feel any better. I like to keep my mind as blank as possible. Every once in a while, I get inundated with stuff on Twitter that I don't want to see, and that's about the extent of my consumption of content.
It's got to be like Severance, right? You're out in the wild, and it's a different Dave, and then you come in here. And
like I said, I don't watch any shows Severance either. I'm sorry. I don't get that
right. Howdy loves RJ Harvey, guys. Now,
I'm messing with you. We love RJ Harvey. At the Senior Bowl, his measurements came out, and I posted on Twitter a little GIF of a very, very small child, and he responded to it, and I was like, oh no! So I went up to him and interviewed him, and I had him shout out Chev because I felt really bad.
Speaking of Chev, you got to get in on this. You've been itching at talking to Dave about RJ
I'm just
Harvey.
trying to delay and make Chev suffer.
And I did this on purpose. I put RJ Harvey as as soon as I heard that Dave had him, I wanted Chev to comment. So let's get on this, Chev.
Yeah, so that he's one of the most exciting players that I got a chance to scout for our draft guide that we've got coming out here pretty soon. And I think that you hit the nail on the head in terms of what's going to make him one of the standout running backs in this extremely deep class. What would it is there anything that you've seen in his profile that lends itself to him not being – I have one thing in mind, and I'm curious to what it is for you that would give you pause about his prospects as an NFL, like a viable NFL either committee, or do you view him as someone that could handle a backfield to himself like he did in college?
I don't know if he can do that because of the size. I mean, of course, there are outliers. We've seen Austin Eckler do it. We've seen Christian McCaffrey do it. We have seen smaller guys in a 3-down role. Obviously, that's the biggest inhibitor. But I think what it is for him is he's going to need to land into a system where they're able to properly coach and develop him. Right now, he's got a lot of that DeAndre Swift in his game, where he's always trying to hit the home run. He's trying to swing outside rather than just turning it upfield, which is weird because you see him when he runs between the tackles, when he hits the A-gap, he's got great footwork through traffic, but he still has this tendency to consistently try to bounce the ball outside. So I think that if he's in a system where they can really kind of coach him up and get him heading upfield quicker, he does have the ability to be a 3-down back. Just going to take a little bit of change in how he plays.
Oh my gosh. All right. Oh my gosh. Did we just
Did I answer that one correctly?
Yes. Like
right.
that's the one thing. So for me, that's the one thing that in watching, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of his games, I was just like, why does he keep trying to bounce? Like, he's hitting home runs by just getting downhill quickly. So it was bothersome for me to see him consistently just stay, like, not get his shoulder square and get vertical and accelerate, because we've seen him have 70-yard touchdown runs. So that was the one thing that gave me cause for pause as to his potential ceiling. Like, you see a guy you see that DeAndre Swift where it's like, man, hit the hole and get and you'll hit a home run, as opposed to like, all right, I'm just looking for that crease to where I can, and you end up running out of real estate. So I love that answer. Thank you for answering my question. Thank you for coming to our TED Talk, you guys.
That's why he needs a good coach. I mean, he needs somebody to sit him down in a film room and say, look at this. Like, all of your biggest plays came when you hit the A-gap. Like, just keep doing that, because he's got the ability. Like, he's got really good footwork through traffic. So, I think the tools are there. The athleticism is there. And he's one of the guys that I'm going to be watching closely this week.
All right, Schultzy, who are you going to be watching closely this week?
For me, talked about some Jalen Noel last week, but I'm going right back to him, man. I'm expecting a big performance here for him. And along what Dave was talking about with RJ Harvey, I'm going to the agility drills here. Now, we talked again last week. People have questioned his long speed. I'm not concerned about it. The 40 time, like, it's whatever to me. I think it's going to be solid. I don't think it's going to be as bad as some people are expecting out of him, but I think he's going to tear up the agility drills. bigz got to see him at the Senior Bowl, and, he just raved about the route running, the footwork. Like, this dude's explosive, and this is his time to shine. Like, I think he's going to really shoot up boards based on his performance. All this dude has done is improved every year of his college career. And every single statistic, he just keeps climbing. I think he's going to, he's been in an offense that's not known for throwing the ball. So now we're going to get him into the league to hopefully a team who knows what the heck's going on. And I think this guy's going to prosper, man.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I got a chance to talk to him. He's an absolute dog. He's going to be a good teammate for people. His quarterback is going to love him. And we're looking at him at 5'9", 5'10", 196 pounds. I'm looking at another receiver, 5'10", 185 pounds, route technician. We're gonna say 128 catches, 128 targets, 103 catches, 1,038 yards, and 9 touchdowns. That was good for a fantasy finish of wide receiver 11 in 2021 for Hunter Renfrow, and that's my Jalen Noel comp.
Oh man, he's so much more athletic than Hunter Renfrow, though. Like
Yeah,
I was going to say athletic Hunter Renfrow.
You
Yeah.
need
I see.
I thought you were
I
gonna-
see
I thought you
golden
were gonna
Tate
give
in his
me-
game.
you
I thought
need
you were going to give me Ladidi McConkey.
no you need somebody who's going to land in an offense where he's not just looked at as a slot receiver to outplay. He might be more athletic than Hunter Renfrow. That's fine. I'm comping him as a route technician with the ability to get open no matter who is guarding him, and earning 128 targets in the season is going to put him in the top 15 because he's got great hands, and he knows what he's doing with the football. So I don't mean as like a personal physical profile. I mean potential for a top 12 finish as a wide receiver in fantasy football.
Yeah,
He's got ball skills for a little guy too. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, we all know how I feel about Jalen, both of the Iowa State receivers. So I really thought you were going to give him the highest of high praise and say Ladidi, but you didn't. And I respect Hunter Renfrow a lot. It's cool that he's like got a State Farm agency or whatever he's doing now. But I think Jalen Noel's going to be really, really good. So
I don't think Hunter Renfrow knows what he's doing right now.
He's running a State Farm agency like Clemson. It's like doing casualty and property insurance in Clemson, South Carolina.
Brain is scrambled eggs. No, but I mean, we have the reason that I bring up Hunter Renfrow is because you look at the reception perception route tree. There are certain routes that are schemed up in the NFL. Specifically, the China route is the one that Hunter Renfrow was a specialist at. Jalen Noel has that kind of athleticism and footwork. I watched Hunter Renfrow very closely as he created new routes, and that's where I'm coming from with Jalen Noel, is that he's going to be able to do some things on the football field that we've never seen before, or he at least has that potential, and we all love some Jalen Noel.
All right, Chev, who do you got as your sleeper?
Will Howard, national champion Will Howard. So we're talking about a guy that's 6'4", 235. At Kansas State, he was used in the run game. He has a 70-yard touchdown against Texas, an 80-yard touchdown in his profile. And basically, they asked him to come in and just don't be Kyle McCord for most of the season. And then in the college football playoff, he started to do a lot more. And I see a lot of the tools, and if you followed the draft process for long enough, you know there's a guy that they fall in love with because he's a winner, and then he has all the physical tools. And I think that guy's going to be Will Howard. This is the guy that I pegged, like I want to see. So I'm really, really excited for what he does at the combine and then at his pro day, because I think he's going to test really, really well. And at worst case, you're getting Daniel Jones, but I think he can actually play football. So you're getting Daniel Jones if he could play football. So, yeah, I'm really, really excited to see Will Howard.
And the beauty to that, we don't hold it against Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward for the fact that they've gotten the good word that their stock is all the way up. They don't necessarily have to throw. It just has to be the interview. The beauty is, though, with somebody, to your point, Chev, Will Howard, Jackson Dart, they're going to get an advantage of some vividness bias when we do sit in front of the TV, get entertained, and get that little bit of taste. So I think what's neat about it, it's like two wins both ways. It's a win for Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. They get the good word. They're on their way. They're on their path. They're going to be in that green room. They've already got a spot locked up in Green Bay, right? But with Will Howard, he gets this opportunity here to prove himself further and really get a pure showcase versus Shedeur and Cam Ward, who already have multiple seasons on wax and are in the forefront. They get out of the way for a moment, and this actually allows that next tier between Dart and Howard to shine. I would be curious to see how Milroe would perform throwing, but to your point, I'm excited, like a gem here, uncut gem in Will Howard to throw.
Yeah,
I'm calling it right now. If the Raiders trade for Matt Stafford, they're taking Will Howard in the second round. If they don't, they're taking Jackson Dart in the first.
Dart
I like
Raider.
that first part of what you said.
I love it. All right. I'm going to go over a sleeper for me, And it's a guy that I've been kind of looking at a little bit more in depth. And I got some intel this last week, and I'm looking at him to rise significantly up the draft boards. It's 6'4", 217-pound Jaden Higgins. I think he's got the ideal size. He's versatile. He plays both inside and out. He posted impressive numbers in 2024, 1,100 yards, 9 touchdowns. He's got the ability to create separation, make plays in the intermediate routes as well. His route running is crisp. He's got the ability to manipulate leverage, makes his threat on deep routes, and he's an effective weapon in intermediate routes as well. So I like Jaden Higgins. His 3.8 yards per reception after contact. He's able to gain yards after the contact. That's a really good trait. 2.66 yards per route run. Anything over 2 is a great stat, so it highlights his efficiency. I'm looking at his hands as a grade 93%, only 3% career drop rate. You know, he's got consistent, reliable hands in critical situations. So he's a sleeper for me. I think if he tests well at the combine, I'm going to expect his stock to rise significantly. He's kind of one of those larger X-type wide receivers that, you know, hasn't been around in the league for a while as far as prolificness goes. And I think Jaden Higgins can bring that back because he is good in the intermediate routes as well. So I think he's ready to make an impact, and he could be a sleeper in the next couple months here.
Dude, I'm really hoping this guy stays a sleeper. I am writing him up for our rookie guide. I know he's not gonna, but fingers crossed, man. I instantly fell in love watching tape on this guy. Talking to Chev a little bit, we've talked about, we see some Nico out of him, right? Nico Collins. And the other guy I see in his game is a little bit of mix of some Allen Robinson with him and some of those contested catch situations. But like Nico, in the way this guy uses his frame to box out defenders on a slant and then to gain the yak on it. And I love this dude. I have him he's jumped up to wide receiver 5 for me. Do you want to talk about cement aisle? Jaden Higgins for me, man. Like, he's pretty good as a route runner. It's smooth. The separations there, and he does it all on his own with just suddenness out of the breaks, man, for such a big dude. Like, love this guy. Big dude, man. I'm huge fan, Jaden Higgins.
Welcome home, brother.
He's my wide receiver 4 after that.
I don't know how you guys feel about PFF grades, but they had him graded as the number 2 wide receiver last year. I mean, he was phenomenal. Yeah, he was another one of those guys that I watched, and immediately I was like, why haven't I been hearing about this guy? Because he does everything I see Teteroa McMillan do. He's just an inch shorter, and that's the reason that we're knocking him, apparently. But yeah, Jaden Higgins, he's got every opportunity to be a superstar.
I went into watching him expecting, I don't know, just like a run-of-the-mill, Iowa State receiver. I don't know, I had, prior convictions of just probably being just a dude here, and I was instantly like, whoa, okay, not familiar with your game.
So if you helmet scout, like the big Iowa State receiver that people immediately go to is Hakeem Butler, and it's like these guys are completely different, man. So, but obviously, if you're just like, oh, there's another big Iowa State receiver, it's like Hakeem Butler, and these guys couldn't be more different. So, yeah, I'm so glad that everybody's on the Jaden Higgins train, and what he did at the Senior Bowl, and bigz was loud about it, but almost too loud, because now he can't get too popular.
Yeah.
2023,
25 touchdowns over the last 3 years. That's a huge number. I mean, the guy was just a touchdown machine at Iowa State. 2023 campus to Canton leagues. I was looking for late round gems in the startup drafts, and then on the waiver wire. And on the waiver wire, I found this quarterback named Rocco Becht, who was starting games at Iowa State as a freshman. And that is a big flag to me, big green flag in campus to Canton. Are you a freshman starting on your Power 5 team? So I started digging on Rocco Becht. I picked him up on waivers in every C2C league that I was in and started watching his games. And he had an okay freshman season. And then in the freshman bowl game, he threw for like 450-something yards. Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll were big targets of his. So it's like those baseball scouts that go out to watch a pitcher and he gets taken yard 3 times by like some big first baseman dude, and they go, oh, who's this now? And that was Jaden Higgins to me. Watching Rocco Becht play football, I started keying in on Jaden Higgins.
And then the draft season started, and I went and saw him at the Senior Bowl, and I was like, watching this dude run routes, watching him absolutely break defensive backs in drills, watching him outrun and make linebackers fall over, win at the line of scrimmage, win deep. Like it was a showcase. And I was like, why is everybody talking about everybody else except for Jaden Higgins? This is crazy. What am I seeing that nobody else is seeing? And when you break down the film, he's it, man. He's I love him so much.
There you go. All right, Biggs. Who else do you love? Who is your sleeper then?
All right, so it's Taj Brooks time. Taj Brooks from Texas Tech. He was a 3-star recruit. He's a power back, and he's absolutely a huge, big-time sleeper. 5'9", 229 pounds. He profiles a 2-down back. You want like two down, short yardage. So you want him to land in the situation where he is going to be the David Montgomery to a Jahmyr Gibbs. Through his collegiate career, he had 1,500 yards rushing the last 2 seasons. He had a 5.3 yards per carry, 28 total touchdowns across those 2 years. Competence as a pass catcher, he had 27, 29, and 28 catches over the last 2 seasons. I want him to shine at the combine because he could make himself a day 2 guy if the combine numbers are there. And I the more I dig on Taj Brooks, the more I'm absolutely sold he's an NFL running back.
Yeah, the handful of people that I've talked to about Taj Brooks, I mean, it seems very polarizing. Like I just hear you say day 2, and I've heard other people say that as well. And then I've heard other people say that he's potentially going to go undrafted. And I think that, what we're doing right here, talking dynasty, talking rookie drafts, his age is going to be a big inhibitor for a lot of people. They're going to see that he's, already 24 years old, and that's going to scare him away. He's got a lot of mileage on his legs in college, but that just tells me, I mean, this guy is ready. Like you can put him in week 1 and he's ready to take an NFL load. Almost never goes down on first contact either. And I don't know if you mentioned that or not, but that's the one thing when I watch him, never goes down on first contact. I mean, he just keeps his legs churning, runs through people. Big fan of Taj Brooks. We talked about him quite a bit at the top of the show. Glad we're talking about him again. One of those guys that just not getting any buzz at all. But I think that if he can come out and, just put up some average metrics, that'll be enough to put him on people's radar.
And another thing that I didn't mention, but shows up on film is his blocking ability. The dude he's very, very good in pass blocking, and he's going to make some NFL coaches very happy with his ability to not be a liability on third downs. Age is a factor, and I cite the Sumer Sports article that talks about combine corollaries and NFL production on every show that I do. And age is the number 1 corollary to production in the NFL for running backs, as far as like what combine stats we're looking at. And yes, it's a concern, but those numbers were taken from a couple years ago, and we have seen a shift in what is happening with running backs over the last 2 years. And that basically post-COVID, that age thing we might see that change a whole lot in the data over the next 5 years. We might find ourselves in 2030 going, age is no longer a factor as a corollary to production.
It's just a number,
Yeah.
Hey, NIL is going to push that up too. I mean, you're going to see kids staying longer. So that's going to, that's, I'm sure, going to push that number up.
Yep.
All right, Coach, your turn, buddy.
Hey, let's talk about Dylan Sampson. I know, Mike, you had talked about that on Player Profiler News Prime Time. Dylan Sampson, running back for the Tennessee Volunteers. 5'11". I've seen weights between 190 and 201. We'll get the official measurement at the combine. On NFL.com, Sampson has the third, not to be confused with Samsonite, the third highest scouting report score of a 6.36, just behind Ashton Janty, Travion Henderson, pretty good names there, right? Lance Zierlein comp Sampson to Brian Westbrook. Remember him, PPR, and all good scheme goodness in fantasy football. Sampson is known for his speed, burst, advanced decision-making in the running lanes. It's notable that Sampson is better at inside zone versus outside zone. His quickness and footwork make him effective in gap schemes. He excels in the high-pressure situations. From PFF, Sampson was 5th, speaking to the gap zones, gap attempts with 163. Dylan Sampson had an eye-popping 22 touchdowns in 2024. So there's touchdown equity there. 14th in yards after catch in 2024 with 929. And then, or after contact. Yeah, right. That would have been something else.
Crazy.
Alvin Kamara. He's got a 90.7 rushing grade on PFF. He has a very good chance to solidify himself in that tier of running backs beyond the top 5. You got Dylan Sampson going in late round 2 in these super flex drafts right now, the rookies. So you've got names like Devin Neal, Ollie Gordon, Cam Scatbo, who maybe Scatbo runs at 4.7. We'll see. And then, of course, Dylan Sampson in that next tier. I'm looking at the 40-yard dash. And then for that burst score, what's going to go into a differentiation? Is he, beyond just being a quick track speed runner, how is he on the vertical jump and the broad jump combined so that we can get just a little extra burst going to that next level in the NFL?
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think his 40 time is going to make a huge, impact on where he's going to land. If he can run a 4.3 or sub 4.3, I think it's going to be a crucial metric, kind of similar to how Jalen Wright was last year. I'm seeing this a very similar situation. His size, what he weighs in as well, I think is going to be a big factor. If he can get over 200, I think that's going to really help his draft stock quite a bit. The 40 time and the size thing, I think, is going to be a big determining factor for him, and what I'm going to be looking for on him cracking the top 10 as far as a running back prospect in this draft.
I think a lot of people too are going to see just a guy coming out of Tennessee, a really fast guy coming out of Tennessee, and we've seen that not pan out recently. But I think that when you watch Dylan Sampson play, he's just a very different player than Jalen Wright or Velus Jones or whoever you want to pick from Tennessee over the years. He's got much better vision, and that's something that a lot of those other guys lack. So I think he's going to go out there and burn the 40 track. He's almost a lock for a 4.3. So I'm with you. I think that's a good call.
So I made the statement. I'm going to defer to Chev Doer. Go ahead.
Well, no, I would just say that with Dylan Sampson, I think the difference between him and the two guys that are actually bigger than him is he runs with a lot more contact balance and physicality. That to me is one of the most transient things. It's like, okay, what's the difference between he and Jalen Wright? It's like, okay, this guy will run through contact and has a nose for the end zone. It's like no other. I mean, he holds a single season record for rushing touchdowns at Tennessee with 22, and he's listed between 190 and 200 pounds. So let's just split it down the middle and say 195. So I think that he's going to be a smash, even if, he's a little bit smaller than, he's Bucky Irving size. Like, we've seen it work. And I hate to be the guy that's like, well, Bucky Irving did it, but, he did it in the first or second toughest conference in America. So, like, why would you write him off and assume that he's just another Tennessee running back? I hate the University of Tennessee, so.
We put so much, for lack of a better word, weight into what a player weighs. But we got to remember, Dylan Sampson's 20 years old, so like he might weigh 195 now. He's not going to weigh 195 3 years from now. I learned this lesson a couple of years ago where I said something. I had a video. I don't know how it came on his radar, but I said something about Rashad White, and I quoted his combine weight. And he DM'd me and he said, bro, that was 2 years ago. I put on 10 pounds since then. I'm 215 now. And I was like, all right, my bad. Like, noted. And that's what happens. Like, these guys, like, what they weigh on this random day. I don't know if any of you guys weigh yourself. Like, my weight could fluctuate like 8 pounds on any given day. So, like, we put so much into, like, what these guys weigh on this random day in March, when the reality is, by the time the season rolls around or by the time he's into year 3, 195, 198, it's not going to make a difference. If he bulks up, he'll be able to play through contact like we know he can.
Well, you mentioned age before with Taj Brooks. Dylan Sampson is the second youngest running back in this draft behind Jordan James. And also similar height and speed. I have said that Dylan Sampson is going to be the fastest RB in the 40 at the combine. And I'm going to stick to it. Love me some Dylan Sampson. Writing him up for the FFAN rookie guide, so everybody be sure to cop that when it comes out. This has been a fantastic show, and such incredible insight and contribution from Dave Kluge, our guest from Footballguys, and thank you for coming on the show for the second year in a row pre-draft. We love having you on. We're all like very, very dedicated followers of you and the work that you do and all that stuff. And if there's anybody out there in fantasy land that's watching the show that isn't familiar with Dave Kluge, go find his stuff because it will make you a better fantasy football player. I mean, it's made us better fantasy football players, and you listen to us. So listen to him as well if you don't already. So give us one more time what you're currently working on, where everybody can find you, all that stuff, and we'll get out of here.
Yeah, Football Guys Fantasy Football Show and the Football Guys Dynasty Football Show, hosting both of those right now. This weekend, I'll be doing instant reaction articles for every single position out of the combine. So those will be coming out Saturday and Sunday night. And then really, I mean, I'm lucky to be where I'm at Football Guys. Joe Bryant just kind of gives me creative liberty to write whatever I feel like. So go ahead and subscribe over to footballguys.com, and whatever comes to my mind next week or the week after that, I'll be writing about.
And play in the listener leagues, and maybe you could beat Grindberg.
Yes, exactly.
I'm seeing on the show sheet, it says, before transitioning seamlessly into the After Dark segment.
All right, folks.
Night, everybody. We hope you win. Thanks for watching.
We hope you
We
win.
hope
Folks.
you win.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. We appreciate it, man.